Hey guys, Otaku here, and welcome back to another video. So today I'm going to be showing off my branded Predaplant deck in Master Duel. Now I do have this deck built in the TCG, however, because the TCG is a lot more ahead than Master Duel, the deck looks a lot different. For example, in the TCG I have Bestials, which haven't made their way into Master Duel yet, and also I side deck evenly matched, whereas as you can see in Master Duel I main deck it because there is no side deck. But without further ado, let's get started. So as you can see, it's a 43 card deck, and if you wanted to take out the evenly matched, that's up to you. It's more of a personal choice for me. But to start, we have one Despian Tragedy, one Predaplant Biblisp, two Predaplant Scorpios because he was raised to the semi-limit from limited in the last ban list, one Predaplant Cobra, two Ash Blossoms, two Ghost Bells, two Edgemp Chains, two Fallen of Albaz, two Aluber since he was brought down to semi-limit in the last ban list, one Shadal Beast, one Albion, one Ad Libitum, one Predaplant Bufalicula, and two Predaplant Triantis. So to start, the reason I only run one Tragedy, one Biblisp, and one Beast, these are mainly the monsters I'm sending off on Branded Fusion, and it's more based on the situation I'm in. If I don't need a Despian monster or a Luber in my hand, or if I use my normal summon, usually I don't go for Biblisp or Tragedy. I'll just go for the Beast to get that extra draw power, and then also possibly summon Winda off of Lubellion instead of going for Mirror Jade. However, if I need Scorpio in hand to search out Cobra, to search out a fusion spell, then I'll go Biblisp, or if I want a Luber in hand to get Branded Lost, then I will pitch out Despian Tragedy. But like I said, which one I send off Branded Fusion is more based on the situation. Now if I could, I would be running 3 Scorpios, however, because of Master Duel's different ban list, we have to run 2. And no matter the situation, only ever run one Cobra because it is a once per duel effect. But this card is actually cracked because it can search out Super Poly, it can search out Polymerization, it can search out Predaprime Fusion, it can search out Branded Fusion, it can search all of your fusion spells out of the deck. This card is insane. I only run 2 Ash Blossoms and 2 Ghost Spells. You can run 3 Ashes and no Ghost Spell. It's more up to you. I run the Ghost Spells because it actually does counter the Mirror Match because the Ghost Spell can hit the Albion and Lubellion, stop them from getting into that Mirror Jade. But like I said, it's more of a personal pick than anything. And then you can run 3 Edgemp Chains, 3 Polys, and 3 Patchwork. That's more up to you. I personally run 2 because I tend to brick if I run 3. We realistically only need 2 Fallen of Albaz because we're constantly recycling it with Lubellion's effect, so we don't need 3. And then for a Luber, like I said, he got hit in the last ban list, so we have to run him at 2. And then Shadal Beast, we only run at 1 because he's more of a tech choice just to draw that 1 card off of sending him with Branded Fusion. But then, like I said, you can use Lubellion's effect to actually build Winda instead of Mirror Jade if you decide that that is the better play. But at no point would I recommend running more than 1 Beast. Albion, I actually underplay a lot in this deck, but I use it primarily just to send Branded Opening to the grave so I can protect my fusion monsters and then also get a free draw. Ad Libitum is strictly in the deck just to recycle Mirror Jade and also get more damage on the board by his second effect of boosting all the monsters on the field's attack points. Bufalicula is just a free polymerization when he's scaled, but also he can bring Triantis back to your hand if you use him and Triantis for a fusion summon. And then I run 2 Triantis because he has multiple uses in this deck. I have on occasion sent him to the graveyard with Branded Fusion to get his effect to put Preda counters on my opponent's field. That way I can summon shit from the graveyard, but also with Dracostapelia negate multiple monsters' effects. But also, with Triantis being scaled as a pendulum monster, he can be used for fusion summoning, so I actually use him as a free body for stuff like Super Poly or Branded Banishment. As for the spell and traps, I run 1 Harpy's Feather Duster, 2 Polymerization, 1 Foolish Burial, 1 Instant Fusion, 2 Fright for Patchwork, 2 Branded Fusion, 1 Branded Lost, 2 Super Polys, 1 Called By, 1 Predaprime Fusion, 2 Branded Opening, 2 Branded in Red, 3 Evenly Matched, and 1 Branded Banishment. So Harpy's Feather Duster is in the deck simply just to check off Labyrinth and Runic since they are running rampant in Master Duel. Other than that, I wouldn't have this card in the deck. Poly and Patchwork are in the deck simply just for more fusion summoning, but also search potential off of the Patchwork for Edgemp Chain and Polymerization. Foolish Burial has multiple uses. It can pitch off Despian Tragedy, Biblisp, or even Shadal Beast just for extra search potential or draw power. Instant Fusion is in the deck strictly just to summon Predaplant Ambuloides for extra search power on Scorpio or just any other Predaplant monster. With Branded Fusion being so highly searchable in this deck off of Cobra or a Luber, I only need to run 2 of it in the deck, strictly because if I ran 1 and it got negated, I'd be screwed, so running 2 is the most optimal for this deck. I run 1 Branded Lost because, again, it is searchable, but also it does help me avoid negates off of fusion summoning my branded monsters, my Fallen of Albaz fusion monsters. Super Poly being semi-limited in the deck means I can only run the 2. However, this card is cracked against any Master Duel deck right now because most decks are dark, and also you see the mirror match for branded on the constant. So being able to steal your monster's board and build up yours is just phenomenal. I run 1 Called By. I know on Master Duel I could run 2. However, it just would take up another slot in the deck that I can't really spare. But Called By is more just to ensure I don't get hit with Ash Blossom. Predaplant Fusion is a card that I have on multiple occasions cut and put back in the deck. I am very iffy on it, but it's basically a free Super Poly without the discard. However, it does require you having a Predaplant monster on board, and you have to fusion summon a dark monster, and you are required to use 2 or more dark monsters on your board. So the real only target for this card is Predaplant Tripovarutum. Other than that, there's very little use to this card. Branded Opening being semi-limited doesn't really hurt because even in the TCG I only run 2 of this card. However, it is very handy for the discard power not being for cost, so that way you can get effects like Tragedy and Bibelist if they are in your hand, or even Beast, and then summoning off a Luber, getting Branded Fusion, etc., etc. But also, like I said, I use Albion to pitch this card in the graveyard if I don't start it in my opening hand. That way I can still protect my fusion monsters if I end up going first, and my opponent has pop effects. 2 Branded in red. I only run 1 of this in the TCG. However, 2 is very necessary in Master Duel because this card gets negated left and right, it seems like. However, again, being able to quick effect fusion summon Guardian Chimera or just any of your other fusion monsters is very handy, but also the search power off of Despian monsters or Fallen of Albaz from your graveyard is also just very handy for getting another card in your hand to, say, activate Super Poly instead of the secondary effect of Branded in red. The 3 Evenly Matched is more of a personal choice. I side deck this card in the TCG, however, there is no side deck in Master Duel. But this card is the best board breaker in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! And I specifically run this card in case I end up getting stuck going second and I draw this card. It's amazing just to see your opponent wiggle after you activate this card. Now, you do have to give up your battle phase to activate this card, but it is completely worth it to punish someone who overextended. And then we have Branded Banishment. This card is basically just a Branded in red if it was a Super Poly. However, it specifically targets Despia monsters or a level 8 or higher fusion monster in the graveyard. No Fallen of Albaz this time around. And it does banish the materials, but this time it does target cards on your opponent's board. So this card is just actually cracked, but I would never recommend running more than 1 of it, and it is searchable off of stuff like a Luber. As for the extra deck, we have Mud Dragon of the Swamp, specifically because Garua is not in Master Duel yet. Shadal Winda, because like I've said multiple times, we can summon this off of Lubellion's effect instead of the Mirror Jade, and it's just one of the best floodgates in all the game because it cannot be destroyed by card effects, and it has a pretty high attack stat, so it's just really hard to get over this card. Predaplant Ambuloides, this card is really easy to get out. There's multiple ways to get it out even without instant fusion, but it is the perfect instant fusion target, and then you can search off any Predaplant spell, trap, or monster from deck to your hand. On top of that, if you manage to get Preda counters on your opponent's monsters, you can actually use this card's secondary effect to tribute them to special summon a Predaplant onto your board. And then I do run 2 Starving Venom Fusion Dragons. You can run 1, however, on multiple occasions I have run against the Numeron deck and they summon the Link 3 Infinitrack card that can't be destroyed by card effects or even targeted unless it's an Xyz monster. So usually my way out is I actually summon 2 Starving Venom Fusion Dragons, boost their attack off of its attack points, and end up swinging over it, so that way I can still hopefully swing for game at that point. However, that's very situational, and obviously that's not something you run into in the TCG, but this is a Master Duel deck list, not a TCG deck list. 1 Predaplant Dracostapelia. This card is just phenomenal. It's super easy to get out. You can use Ambuloides as the fusion monster material, but then also the quick effect, put a Preda counter on something, negate all monsters with Preda counters effects. I do only run 1 Albion, and that's simply because I just didn't have the ultra rare points to get a second one. However, if you have a second one, I'd definitely recommend swapping out one of the extra deck cards for a second one, just because sending off 1 is not worth it. Or you could bring in some of the other Albaz fusion monsters that get graveyard effects on the end phase. 1 Despia Quiritis. This card very rarely sees play, but every so often it does get me out of a bind, summoning it, quick effecting it to put all my opponent's monsters to 0 attack points. I do run 2 of Masquerade the Blazing Dragon. I very rarely get both of them out, but when I do, it's very satisfying watching your opponent only have like 4 or 5 effects because they're getting hit for 1200 damage every time. I do also run 2 Mirror Jades because 1 isn't enough. It's very easy to get over this card, and yes, it does break your opponent's entire board. However, most people at this point know how to play around Mirror Jades, so getting the second one out on the board after they've removed the first one, it makes it really difficult at that point to deal with that last effect. I also run a singular Lubellion, the Searing Dragon. I run 2 in the TCG, and I would recommend running 2 actually in Master Duel, but again, I didn't have the UR points, simply because if this card gets negated, you're going to have a hard time getting Mirror Jade on the board. 1 Predaplant, Trip of Verudum. This card and Starving Venom Fusion Dragon are primarily my Super Poly targets, simply just because all they require is dark monsters on the field, and in a meta that is severely flooded with dark monsters, that makes it really easy to summon these monsters out. Also, on the off chance that your opponent doesn't summon with, say, a fusion effect, Predaplant Trip of Verudum can negate the special summoning from the extra deck at least once per turn and destroy the card before it even technically hits the board. It's a somewhat rare effect to get off, however, when it does, it's very satisfying and catches your opponent off guard. Not to mention, if you have Predacounters on your opponent's board, you can special summon this card from the graveyard. And then Guardian Chimera. This card is primarily only in the deck because it is a branded and red target. However, I have summoned it on my own turn to pop my opponent's board. It's very easy when you have that extra body like Edgem Chain in your hand because of, say, Patchwork, and then you have Polymerization. This card is just a really good tech choice because it has draw power and pop power all on the same effect. But that is it for my Master Duel branded Predaplant deck. If you have any questions or you have some critiques, definitely leave them in the comments down below. Of course, be nice, but I definitely am very good at taking criticism, so I'd like to hear what you have to say. But definitely leave a like and follow if you're seeing this on TikTok, or subscribe if you're seeing this on YouTube. And definitely let me know if you want to see more of my Master Duel or even TCG deck lists here on YouTube or TikTok. But with that, I'll see you all next time.